One of my classmates at the Liturgical Institute, Adam Bartlett, who is the founder of Source and Summit, he recommended that I go to St. Meinrad Archabbey in Indiana and meet a particular monk who was there who would teach me more about chant. And I had a great interest and love for Gregorian chant already at that point, but he recommended that I go and spend time with Father Columba Kelly, just so that I could be immersed in it a little bit more than I had been at that point in my life. And while I was there, so I went to St. Meinrad, not for a workshop or anything else. I just went to stay for the week in the guest house. And Father Columba was happy to have me there. He was an 80-year-old monk already at that point.
Wow.
He passed away a few years ago. But he was willing to welcome me to basically sit at his feet and learn for the whole week.
Wow.
And so the first morning, the chapel bells were ringing at 4:55 in the morning, for 5 a.m. I think that's what time. It seemed that it was that early. And I was laying there going, I think I'm not going to go to the first office of the day. I think I'll get myself ready for Mass in a little bit and then breakfast and all of that. But I don't think I'm going to go yet. But the tower bells right above the guest house ring for 10 minutes straight before the liturgy starts. So at a certain point, I just got up and brushed my teeth and changed to run in there. Yes.
And you were talking like big bells, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah, the monastery bells. And so Father Columba was basically the father of chant in the English language in this country. So he was studying at the Pontifical Institute of Sacred Music in Rome in 1963.
Oh, wow.
So during the council, he was studying there. And he was a particular expert in Gregorian chant. And so when he came back to the United States, when he came back to St. Meinrad, his abbot asked him, so about this chant in the vernacular kind of thing, should we try it? And he ended up writing an antiphon in English for every single possible antiphon in the Liturgy of the Hours and in the Mass, for the entire possibility of the liturgical year. And so there were these binders and binders and binders of antiphons that they had before they were, really digitized at St. Meinrad. And it was all inspired by and based on patterns already present in Gregorian chant. So there's a real connection there, right? Yeah. It wasn't just a new composition, but some of them were inspired in a new way because the English language is different from the Latin language. Yeah. And so that's really what I went there to study with him, is kind of a both the English chant and Latin chant. And he would just sit there and talk at me, and I would write notes, and he would talk about all sorts of things, not just music. He'd talk about Bach preludes and fugues, and then he would talk about the Heisenberg principle in physics and other things. It all related back to Gregorian chant in some way. And so one of our classmates described Father Columba, when you learn from him, it's like drinking from a fire hose, right? He's just, massively imparting massive amounts of information to you. And you sit there and you receive it from him. And
how many of you were there?
No, it was just me.
Just you? Okay.
Yes, so I just went to spend the week with him by myself.
Oh, wow.
Which was great. So it was not in a workshop or anything else. And I know that was a unique privilege because most people went to workshops with him. Yeah.
So he's just there giving you all of this knowledge and wisdom. And
so he would talk for, an hour or so or more in the morning. And then he'd say, okay, let's take a rest. And then after lunch, come back. And so then I'd go back and he'd talk at me for a while, a couple of hours. And then he'd say, okay, I'm going to take a nap. I'll see you at Vespers. And then he would ask for me to, do some reading overnight. Go find these 12 things in the library and come back tomorrow morning. And there's no possible way I could have done everything that he'd asked me to do in between. But about the third or fourth day that I was there, I had been in the chapel during a period of time, maybe after lunch or something, when he was taking a rest. And I just found myself in tears. And I went to his office at 2 p.m. or what time I was supposed to come back. And you have to remember, this is he's an 80-year-old monk, Benedictine monk. He seems like a grandfather. Right? And so I show up at his office in tears, I think expecting to be consoled. And I just said, I don't know why I'm crying. And he said, good.
Wow.
What do you mean good? He said, good because it's doing something to you.
Oh.
Right. That this music is having, this study of the music, entering into it more deeply, is having such an impact on you that there are things welling up inside of you.
That you don't understand.
That I don't understand.
Can't explain.
Right.
Wow.
So he just said, good. And then basically, let's get back to work. And so there was no time for sitting around and crying.
Yeah, and drink more from this water hose. Right?
Yeah, exactly.